Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome to the final installment, at least for this year, of our limited series of Bumps in the Night. We are finishing up the month with the subject of Boggarts, which of course begs the question of what are they? So, if you will, try to set aside any Harry Potter induced preconceptions. I suppose the simplest explanation is that a Boggart is a mischievous spirit, oftentimes attached to a house, a piece of land, or a particular family, and it's one of the original things that go bump in the night in the folklore of Britain. Now, it can be a generalized term, it can refer to a wide range of creatures. However, most often, it what I have found is that, it tends to be essentially what happens when you don't treat the house brownie, with appreciation. It turns into a boggart, which is really an outstanding lesson in how you treat someone, especially someone who is helping you or helping you do something, how that can make all the difference in your interactions and how, your treatment can make the difference between whether that is a happy association or whether or not it turns really, really ugly really, really quickly. So, their appearance. The lore disagrees considerably about their height. There are some older stories that describe them as being human sized and even a tad bit larger than we are. But more recently and most often, they tend to be seen as being smaller in stature, kind of think like hobbit size, and they tend to look very quite advanced in years, oftentimes very hairy. Sometimes their complexion tends to be a bit darker, almost as if they rose from the soil. I haven't come across the story, but it wouldn't surprise me if there is a story that, if it explained that at all, that it would be essentially of them being formulated out of the soil. But that's just my personal idea that I haven't fully researched or put to the test just yet, but I thought I would toss it out there. Boggarts are not known to have the prettiest of faces. They have quite an informal and even a shabby manner of dress, which absolutely makes sense because their counterparts, the brownies, they're known for doing the domestic chores. And when you're doing a lot of domestic chores, whether inside the house or out, practical clothes are a given. You could do it in a ball gown if you wanted to, I guess, but it wouldn't exactly keep the ball gown intact, now would it? And when the brownies transform into boggarts, they don't really have a change of costume. They can turn themselves invisible. They're known for some shape-shifting capabilities, which is what I think J.K. Rowling really capitalized on in the Harry Potter series of the idea of the Boggart taking on the shape of anything that frightens you. But in the folklore, it's not that as extreme or pronounced. They do have a form that you could see if you happen to encounter them, but they can shift themselves about a bit. Now, as to their residence, boggarts can be found in houses, on farms, and where people are likely to frequent. And whereas brownies are really going to be a boon wherever they are, they're going to help out and do nice things as long as you're nice to them. Once they transform into boggarts, chaos will prevail. If a once pleasant and well ordered household has just gone to pot out of the blue, it is worth investigating whether or not a boggart is lurking around. So there are signs of this naughtiness, such as putting cold hands on people at night and snatching away the bedclothes. Never pleasant. No one wants to deal with that, especially if you're all warm and cozy. Rearranged furniture, breaking fragile objects, banging on the pots and pans, disappearing objects, which does put a new spin on the perennial household problem of misplaced keys. It may not just be your forgetfulness that's encountered there. Soured milk, set gone milk that's gone sour really before its time. A variety of pranks on pets and people. And generally, the problems of Boggarts tend to be more nuisances, but there have been stories in which it was a much more sinister in nature. So you don't want things to get too bad. You want to keep it to, light, to where it's mischievous but not necessarily dangerous. So that brings us to making peace, because if you have a boggart around, just operate on the assumption that you did something and it's just time to make peace. Even if you're not primarily at fault, you're not going to be able to winkle your way out of it. It's just a lot easier to make peace. And that involves offerings, offerings, and more offerings. Things like milk, honey, bread, food you've prepared. It's also important not to name the boggart. And now I have not seen anything similar about brownies, but it seems like once that line has been crossed in them being a boggart, it's important not to name them. because that seems to solidify its presence as a Boggart, and it makes it nigh unto impossible to pacify or get rid of it. So all around, it's better and easier just to be nice to the house brownie in the first place. So I hope you have enjoyed this limited series about various things that go bump in the night. It's been fun looking a little bit into this folklore, and I hope it's inspired you to look further into the stories and get to know these creatures a bit better yourself, at least, from a research perspective. But next month, we're going to be going in a different direction. We're going to be focusing on the much more domestic spheres during Friday. So I hope you'll be back to see what I come up for you there. In the meantime, let me know what you think of this particular video and the series as a whole in the comments. And of course, I will see you guys next week. Bye for now.